Hello, everyone. Welcome to Konveyor community meeting. Today is March 12th. We abide by Konveyor code of conduct, which means be nice to one another. This meeting is recorded and will be available in YouTube for later viewing. And I also linked the agenda in the chat. I pinned it. So if you could add your name to the attendees, that would be awesome. Without wasting my time, without wasting all your time rambling, I'm just gonna dive in the agenda. All right. My name is Savita. I'm your host today. Does anyone want to say hi? Do we have any newcomers today?
Hello.
Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna jump the next thing on the agenda. It's the demos. We have first one from Alex. Let me stop presenting my screen so Alex could take it away.
Okay, so give me one moment to share my screen. Okay, not this one. Okay, give me 1 second. I wasn't ready. I didn't think it was going to be so quick. So there we go. Okay, and now if I make it big, okay, yeah, you can see it. Okay, so let me start here. So for some time we've been observing some instability in our KI tests because the lack of execution of tests that require a real AI provider. So the problem with running tests that rely on AI providers can be divided in 3 different things. The first one was the lack of determinism we were having in the KI test, because if the AI can return different responses each time, it becomes difficult to properly evaluate the results of a test. It can still be tested though, as we expect some things to be always similar. Like if you fix an issue, a Java issue or an import from JavaX to Jakarta, or vice versa, you expect something to be always present in the AI response. But the output will never be a strict one-to-one match. Second, and this is one of the most important things, there is the security issues, because we have different API keys because we use different AI providers in the test. So we were storing at the very beginning some tokens in GitHub that could potentially be leaked through environment variables, logs, or even test screenshots. So it was difficult to control. And finally, there is the cost. We have now in KI, I don't have the exact number, but we have more than 50 tests that use AI, and they are running on every pull request. So often they are running more than once per pull request. That means that we were constantly running out of GPT quota, or had to rely in other AI providers. So to address this, we have started adapting our test to use Lemulator utility that was developed by Fabian. This utility emulates OpenAI responses, and they can be loaded manually. So they can be returned sequentially or based on specific patterns. And it is compatible with both streaming and non-streaming response. So with this tool, we are able to make each test load their own responses and don't rely on real AI providers. here's a small example of how it looks to load and fetch a response. It's a really small utility, but it's super useful. So we went through each one of our tests that uses AI, and we implemented this small workflow. First, the test checks whether the emulator is configured. If it is, the test loads the responses it needs directly within the test itself. And after that, if it's not configured, the system falls back to our current method for identifying which provider is available. So you can still use real AI providers to run the test if you want to run them locally, or if you want to use real providers. So by doing this, each test receives its responses immediately, and they are tailored to specifically to what the test requires. So this gives us several advantages. So first, the test becomes deterministic, since the response we load, each response we load is exactly the response the test will receive. We also avoid security risk because we avoid the exposure of API keys in GitHub. And in addition, the test execution becomes significantly faster because the emulator responses are almost instantaneous. So there is no need to wait for a real model to process the request and then generate a response. And I missed this slide, sorry. So finally, we reduce costs and avoid exceeding token quotas. We're also allowing tests to be executed as many times as necessary without any concern. So I think I have a small demo here. Yeah, it's really short because, again, the responses are sent immediately. So now you can see this is a test running, and now when we request a solution in the test, we get an immediate response. As you can see, it didn't load anything. And in the reasoning, you can see that this is a emulator response. And we can emulate a whole file modification. So we are able to test almost everything that will be tested with a real provider. The only thing that we are missing right now is to have it running on GitHub itself. We are working on that. And also, the emulator doesn't support loading tool calls. So we will be working on that as well. So that's basically it. If you have any questions.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Alex. It's awesome. So if we write tests in the future, if we want to use the LLM emulator, do we have to add the response as well?
You will have, sorry, what?
So if we add tests in the future for any other like provider or like any other language, if we want to use the LLM emulator responses, do we need to add the response as well? Or
yes,
it will
yes, in the same test file where you are running your test, at the very beginning of the test, you can load your responses, or you can load them right before you will use them.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. Next up is David. Goose and the editor extension. While he is setting it up, whenever I think of Goose, I think of the Goose game. I don't know if folks have seen that security Goose game.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I feel a little guilty because Alex had slides and kind of gave context, and I was about to not do any of that. So what I will do, and now that, oh, I see. So whenever I move a window, it's doing the picture-in-picture thing, and it's messing me up. So what I wanted to share with you really quickly is here's the link to the proof of concept. It kind of talks about the Goose arc, why we are investigating down this path. And just to try and fast forward, like elevator pitch, we currently, our editor extension relies on a home built agent that we have developed using LangChain, and it's worked fine for what we have been doing so far. All of our migration brain is basically included in the editor extension. And so as we move forward, that's a concern for the Konveyor project as a whole, because one, we are not Claude, we are not Codex, we are not open code, and in principle, we can't really keep up with those agentic tools. But what we can do is we can bring our knowledge of the migration space to bear on these problems. And we need a mechanism to have skills, MCPs, ACPs, prompts, those kinds of things, and deliver them into the problem to help improve the solutions that you could get and make it sort of agnostic. So the idea being you could leverage these skills in Claude or OpenCode or Codex, but we bundle them together in our extension. And so the idea in the future is that we pull what is right now hard-coded prompts for specific providers. We put those into something that doesn't live with the extension specifically. So that's kind of to paint the picture why we are looking at Goose. We're remove ourselves from developing and maintaining the agent itself, because there are some good off-the-shelf ones that are available, and that's what's going on. So as we move forward, what I wanted to just show is this should look familiar. We have our analysis page, the stop, start, run analysis button. The new thing, though, is the Konveyor chat is persistent. And in here is where I would be doing things like setting my provider model. I can set my credentials, and I can do these extensions. A lot of these are very Goose specific. And the goal in the future would be to kind of slim these down and reduce the burden on the individual user to know all the knobs to mess with. But that's that piece. What I wanted to show you, though, is if I take an incident now and I go to execute a fix, I'm concerned because this is the one that's like broke for me like 100 times in the last 12 hours. So right now I'm having a hard time getting it to stream the results like we used to have, but we can review. Yeah, this is how it's been jacking up the whole file. So whenever I mess with a POM file, it like rewrites it this way, and I'm not a fan. But so I can, where's that at the top? I can reject these changes, right? And then I can continue. Let's see if I can pick a file. Did it save it anyway? See, we have bugs. What I wanted to see is if I could actually hit the button on one that would work. So the idea for the what would we call that in editor extension land is the 06 timeline is to have basically swap out Goose and potentially open code into the IDE extension, and from the user perspective, it looked no different than before. You do these individual fixes, and we review them and we accept them, and hopefully they make decent changes to our files. So yeah, that's more legitimate. So right now it's blowing up whenever I do a POM file. But the important part is, in this case, we are relying on the Goose agent to actually do the hard part, and it deals with the communicating with the model and leveraging those things. What we're trying to do here is with an updated and better state management, better able to handle those messages and render them. hopefully make it a good user experience in the future. That's all I have.
Does it make sense to? It seems to me like even in this change, it looks like the Java X is still being used, even though it should be switching over to like Jakarta or something, right?
I think I had messed up the profile. I have to look.
Okay. I guess the big question I have is like, does it, when you are in this agentic world, does it make sense maybe to have like a pre-process step that takes all of the incidents and kind of batches them into like composable bits that can actually be solved in one go? Like,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
But the first pass was to bring Goose in
Yeah.
and not be scary.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just I'm trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah, Ian absolutely had it working and was showing it to me, and then I went to go use it and I broke it when I tried to rebase it on main, and so I've been trying to recover it. But the idea is to bring in open code and Goose. Both of them actually require binaries, is what I found out yesterday. But they both communicate the same way, so we should be able to selectively choose which of those two we want and communicate with them. And then I think a lot of the work is going to be dealing with models that can't do tool calls and things like that, like how we're going to gracefully degrade performance. But then once we start pulling the brain, the prompt, and all of those things out into the individual providers, like the providers, like so in our case, we have the Konveyor Java extension, and I would expect that thing to be telling the core extension what prompts it has available, and for us to have the agent use those prompts when it goes to fix issues and that come from the Java extension. But at that point, we should also be able to start looking at the entire analysis result and splitting that into chunks that should be done together.
Okay.
But for right now, the idea is to put that behind a feature flag. So I've been breaking it, but I look at user extension, we see Konveyor. We did have I think it was in the agent mode. In that mode, if I reloaded, you should only have, you were only supposed to have the Konveyor chat and you were able to message it directly. But I broke it, so. But the idea was for the planning and stuff, as we were working through that, for it to be behind the experimental flag. So the experiment, everything, if the user didn't enable that flag, it would look like it has looked in the past. That's all I have. I can stay here all day if you'd like to watch me play with the settings.
No, this is cool. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, David. Okay, let me just reshare my screen. All right, can folks see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you. Next up is roadmap updates from Dylan.
Sorry, my son's running in here. Yeah, okay. I just want to call it a few things. So I released 091 last night. Again, the intended cadence is every 3 weeks, like in the community meetings, because these streams for the last supported version. Starting with 09, because I'm just kind of leaving 08 as is for right now. So that's ready to be tested. There was an issue that probably necessitated me to cut this earlier, but I also had some builds broken, so just kind of worked out well that I ended up doing it last night. So I set 092 for April 2nd, which would be 3 weeks from today. And I haven't set a date yet for 010. I did just want to call out this PR that I opened, which will get you guys all of the milestones in all of your repositories. If I could get someone to take a look at that, give me an ACK, I can merge that in. And that'll get you 092 and 010 milestones. That will also auto kick everything off of 091 onto 092, because I see a lot of people still haven't updated it. So that's it. Questions? Okay.
Thank you, Dylan. Next up is sprint goals. Dylan, do you want to take this, or I can just go over?
Yeah, I think so. High level, we're still are working on our testing improvements, which we've made a significant amount of progress in. Like, I think the last community meeting, Sean demoed the Concur work. I think we've made a lot of progress actually since he demonstrated that. We have nightlies running. It's been super helpful for me to catch some regressions in the other languages that we support now. I think now we're looking at our end-to-end testing system and figuring out what we want to actually replace it with. Now that we're focusing on using Concur for analysis results, like the UI tests, the Go Conveyor tests, and the CLI tests probably have a lot of redundancies that we can start kind of stripping out. So we got that going on. And then we really need to start getting enhancements in for 010, which I've linked those again in the enhancements and triage section. There's been 3 that's been sitting there, just not really moving. And then I don't know if there's other work that people are intending to include in 010. I mean, I think by now in an ideal state of the world, we would have had a kind of enhancement freeze set, but 09's been kind of a big chunk of work for everyone. So I was thinking maybe next community meeting we can actually set some dates for 010. Also because I don't even know what we're committing to yet. So enhancement review, there's 2 of them that I know that I want. There's 3 up. So and then there's still a window of time if you guys have other things you want to include, which I've heard a few people kicking some ideas around. And then another big effort is on the UI for Patternfly 6 migration. So that's the high level stuff. I don't know, Jeff, Emily, if you have anything that you want to call out specifically. I know Fabian's not here, so maybe David. There's something you guys want to call out specifically that you're going to do the next sprint that I didn't mention that's in the high level? Or is that all good?
That pretty much sums it up for us.
Yeah, you got it. We're mostly working on bug fixes and trying to figure out how to get the Goose agent into main.
Awesome. Cool. And then just scrolling right on through to the enhancement triage section. Again, like, please review these things, provide feedback. That's everyone's job on the community. So I would really like to see the contra refactor thing get approved and merged, or I'm sorry, not just don't blindly approve it. I'd like to get feedback and get that thing kicking off, because I know that's been something that is painful since we put in some changes for 09 that may or may not have slipped past my litmus test with some Claude review. I'd like to kind of take a stab at refactoring some of the work there because I had to fix a bug yesterday there or 2 days ago, and I was a little stressed out about it. Then migration complexity, I think that's going to be super important moving forward. It's a small change actually, but well, it's not. It's a small addition that I think opens up a lot of other interesting opportunities that would potentially also go into 010. Like, how do you actually do bulk generative AI from our conveyor like hub? So I'd like to just get some feedback on that. I've only seen like 2 people iterate on that one. And then on the MCP side, I think we're interested in a general conveyor MCP server. That seems to be the gist of where I think we're going. What that MCP server exposes and actually supports is a very big open question mark that a lot of different people have different opinions on. So I think that enhancement was opened by Jonah just to cover the analysis capabilities, which is a no-brainer that we have to include. But I think part of the larger discussion for 010 is also what other capabilities are we exposing by MCP. So just looking for feedback on all of those, and then making you guys aware that if you have other work that's going in that you need feedback on, reviews on, those enhancements should be drafted ASAP. That's it.
Thank you, Dylan. And if folks have any ideas or any issues or anything that you want to see in Konveyor, you could go to the announcements repo and then create an issue, and then we can discuss it over there. Okay, I'll move on to the next topic, open discussion items. The first 2 are from Sean. The first one is a retrospective on the final day of release. Nightly for 0.9 was running against main not 0.9 branch. So, Sean?
Yeah, so just wanted to talk through it seems to me that the last couple of releases we've had some general problems with our understanding of what's being tested and where. And so I wanted to try to take some time to discuss what is everyone's understanding, I think, of like what should be tested where, and then I guess trying to understand what we can do moving forward to, I guess, validate our agreement on what should be tested and where, and then to make sure that everyone is looking out for smells if things aren't looking like that. And then to have people feel empowered to go and fix that problem. I think another example of this would be the change that Dylan was talking about a second ago, that came in just recently. So I guess I just wanted to have a discussion. I don't know where to start it.
Can I chime? You're being way too nice about this, to be frank with you.
Okay.
Let's be candid and honest. Like, our tests are consistently broken and no one has any idea. A fair statement. Like, this happens all the time. And in this specific scenario, it's because no one has any idea how the CI system is actually testing these images. Is that a fair, like, more blunt to the point truth?
Yeah, I think there's a yes, and my favorite way of saying things. Yes, and like all of the images are built by the individual components, and so like we're testing, like especially in nightlies, right? You're testing like images from Quay that each individual component builds itself. It's not like and so each component has to be doing the right thing. And then it gets really tricky when, like, component A is based off of component B, but it doesn't update to pull the release branch when we release branch. And so, like, there seems to me to be a process and or tooling problem.
Is this just a problem with CI? Like, I feel like with releases, right? Like, we have that all sorted out, like, so that like base images are built first. Are we not doing that in CI? Like, when we're testing?
Today, the nightly CI. Well, I guess there's the other question and discussion around, like, the current bifurcation of CI, and that the concur CI stuff that I've been putting in does basically rebuild all the images for all the nightlies. It will do all of that, just like Jason's talking about for the given release. But no, Jason, today the nightly will just use the tagged images on Quay in the end-to-end API stuff.
Yeah. I'm curious too. Like, yesterday, I didn't spend much time looking at it with you guys, but like I looked at when the job started failing, like February 25th, 26th. Between like the 25th, they were green. The 26th, they were like all but one build had failed, or one tested, like one pass on one, like release 08 or something passed. Everything else for release 07 and release 08 have failed since February 26th. So my question is, like, I mean, right now it's really hard to say what happened on February 26th. Like, I don't know if there's a way that we get like a list of SHAs or a list of like what commits everything came from. But it would be helpful to know like what changed on February 26th. And I didn't see that there was any easy way to do that. And I feel like that's maybe a hard question because, it's so many repos, but yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think that's another discussion to bring up is, like, we have failing nightlies that are just failing, and like
no one seems to care.
it feels like that's business as usual. So I'm throwing it out to the group, like, do we think that should be business as usual? Do we, like, what am I missing something? Yeah, I'm just trying to throw it out there, see what y'all think, see what we can do better, try to get some ideas, capture next steps, maybe try to get some folks to help out with some of the work. So really wanted it to be an open discussion.
So I have a couple thoughts. So we have different tiers of testing, right? We have PR gating, we have a nightly, and the like release gating. So it would be nice to have a common understanding of what images are used in each one. So for instance, the PR gating for the UI repo, that the end-to-end tests run for that don't run the same set of tiers that are run on the nightly, because the nightly can take 4 hours to run. So we don't want to wait 4 hours for every PR. And the PR, when it installs the cluster and it installs the tackle operator, everything is everything except for the UI is the Quay latest tag, and we rebuild, drop the current PR image on, and install that and run from there. So that's for the PR. For the non-global CI and nightlies, right? So we have our own workflow that does that whole thing. That's all latest. Nothing's rebuilt. So that's always the most recently pushed image from every repo, which should correspond to tip of main. So if that's okay, so that's the question of which images should we use in different places. PR ones for the latest tag, nightlies, latest, but except for maybe Concur, and then the release ones make sense to rebuild. But that's kind of the question there is, from those 3 tiers of testing that we're doing, which image does it make sense to consistently use? And then I know that we can do things to catalog what the actual image shot is instead of the latest tag. And then if everything's built with the docx build, then the GitHub commit SHA it was built from should be embedded in the properties of the container, at least upstream. So we could have something that can just scan the operator and dump out the latest tag plus the upstream SHA and the commit ID that it was built from. So we could at least have that, if that could be dumped in the report. Even the GitHub summaries, that would potentially make it easier to say, oh, it failed last night, but now it was okay last night, it failed tonight. What was it running yesterday? What was it running today? So that's all the ideas I had.
So it sounds like you're saying we need to get more clear on what images are being run where.
Well, I think his point is we could get like the git SHAs for like if we dump those out in the CI run. Now we know like, okay, last night it was working. These are the, like you were saying, the SHAs that it was built off of should be in the image. So if we use do a podman inspector or whatever and grab those values, then we have the git SHAs that everything's built off of. And then to my point, like February 25th, these were the git SHAs that everything was built off of. February 26th, these are. So now we know what changed, like, what repos changed, what, we can dig back and see what commits were in there and why tests suddenly started failing one day.
Okay.
I think. I mean,
yeah, no, both of those things. You're both right. I just put in the chat an inspect pods script that I use on the UI just to see if my dev environment is running if the latest image running in my dev environment is actually the latest image that's published to Quay. And again, it then also dumps the the VCS ref, which is the git commit SHA. When they match up, so you can actually map it back to what commit in the repo came from. So something like that, it would be fairly straightforward to adapt to a report. Yeah, having a set of expectations for what images are used in what places as just kind of like CI guidelines, that would be quite helpful.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a little slightly differently, which is that like the end user's repository who is wanting to integrate into our CI should not be responsible for choosing the images that runs. The CI system should be. Using the GitHub context to get the base branch, whether it be main or a release branch, we choose the correct things to get. and all they say is like, hey, I need to build the images. I need to build the images for this PR. And we say, okay, that requires you to build your image, and these 3 images also rely on your image. So we're going to rebuild those based off of that image, and then we'll set up the test for you and run it. But you're not responsible for understanding that at all. That's what Concur does today, or the Concur set of workflows. So I think in some ways that does alleviate, I think, a problem you're saying. It also checks out each repository. So presumably you should be able to go and look at every image build and determine what SHA was run there. And we could write a script to make it easier to pull that out or something, or make it a report. But you should have access to that. I think what I'm hearing is that we are kind of in agreement that the just use what was pushed to Quay and hope it's right. Maybe isn't the right assumption. So I think I agree with that. And I guess my hope is that as we move off of the current CI, that problem gets semi-solved. What else do folks find hard about the CI system?
Yeah, from my side, I actually haven't been in last weeks much in touch with the CI, but in the past, what I remember, 50% of the issues were with the building, or generally not that reliable builds with regards to, for example, release branches. But those were usually more tricky ones. Generally, what I do think is that the gating PR's jobs that would gate PR, don't have to be that complex. It's I would put more emphasis on the nightlies that can take the time and really rebuild latest states of the repositories. I highly appreciate your work on the Concur because this is great, and also would like to know if there is the plan of the replacing current CI system or generally the CI nightly jobs to use just this Concur, or if there is still the previous Konveyor test tier 0 or something, or is it already replaced?
Today it's pretty much opt-in. People can go use the Concur stuff. I've been talking with Jeff a little bit around basically taking the Tackle Hub Concur test, taking out the cluster initializations bits and putting that in its own action, so that a cluster exists, and then you can run your own set of steps to test whatever you want against that cluster, and then run the Concur test against that cluster. So that's one thing to get all, I think, in Jeff's mind, that would need to exist before we can move them over to a lot of the hub repositories, at least, over to Concur. Analyzer LSP and Contra are both already using Concur, and I'm trusting those results at this point. I know Mayan has just done a bunch of work to move over the last little bit of testing that needs to be, or to fully get the analysis coverage that one over. Yeah, I think we're close, to answer your question, Merrick, to being able to say turn off Go Konveyor test and move to Concur. At least from my perspective.
Yeah, that sounds great. Maybe only suggestion or maybe other question from my side would be some kind of tagging of images with a Git commit or some kind of state of the repository which it has been built from. as for example, for hub that covers multiple repositories like hub seeds at maybe something else. This is also this historically this was the issue that for example hub used some older seed or some seeds were outdated, etc. So yeah, some components don't have their own images, which of course, but we're just thinking if there is some mechanism to really be able to later tell that this build actually comes from this commit hashes from all these repositories.
Yeah. Just to basically to what Concur does today, for choosing images for nightly, it will go to every repository and using a matrix config, it will build every image that needs to be built from the correct branch. So whether that be release 09 or whether that be main. It builds all those images. It will also go and update GoMod. So if you are vendoring in a library, that is a thing that we would build, we will also update the vendor, update GoMod before you build the image to use the latest main. And then we build that image. If you are basing your image off of another image, we will build the base image first, and then we will update rebuild your image off of that base image, that way. And once we get all the images, then we run all the tests. We save all of the images we've built as artifacts on the workflow. And for all of the PR runs that use the end-to-end workflows for Concur, you'll build the images that need to be built for testing. So a PR on Analyzer LSP will build, the providers will build Contra and Tackle2 add-on Analyzer. But all the other images that are needed for running tests will use the last known good nightly for that given branch. So if it's a release 09, it will use the last known good nightly from release 09. If it's main, it will use the last known good nightly off of main, and it will use those images in place of rebuilding, like images that wouldn't be under test. So it sounds like what I'm trying to get. We can probably end the discussion at this point. I think, Dylan. I want to impress upon folks that this can't be one person's job. We need I need help from the team to both build the system that works for everybody, which is why I'm very thankful for Jeff for talking with me and asking questions and like trying to help me build this better system. So it's not just like making sure the system works for you, but also when the system breaks, well, one, right now, if nightlies break in that world, everyone's tests will be broken. So it becomes everybody's problem.
I really just want to hammer that point home. If we take away nothing else, this is the problem we keep getting into, is no one wants this to be their responsibility. And that's the frustrating part for me, is I feel like this is what happened to Merrick in the old CI system. He ended up being the only person that would dive in and own a lot of these things. And so when people needed things, they just said, oh, Merrick will take care of it. And I didn't think that was fair. I see the same thing happening to Sean. I don't want that to happen. Like,
it can't happen.
Yeah,
I mean, I will be gone in about a month and a half.
So then it's going to become my
months.
problem because I can't cut a release, and then I have to get like it. Everyone is just being silent when these things get brought up, and I despise that. That's my big tension right now. It's like I don't see anyone. I don't feel the team is motivated and interested in fixing these problems. except for a small handful of people, and it needs to be every single person on the team. That's my take.
I see Jeff and David both have their hands up. Whoever wants to go first.
It tells me I'm first, so I'll just take that as.
Okay.
I guess I'm wondering, would there be merit to us moving to automated releases where the end goal, like let's just say for this next major release, the end state for at the end is we are automatically releasing whenever all of the builds are working. Like if we pass all the regression tests, then we just push a new operator bundle to the different places that we publish them. That's escaping my brain right now. And if we get into that, when we break, we are like actually broken. Would that improve the situation, or would it just?
I have no idea if it would improve the situation. We
Yeah,
already know
right.
that things are broken with nightlies and nobody's jumping in. I don't know what adding like a process that would then cause more agita and scariness.
In fact, I don't think it would change anything, because this happens consistently where I try to cut a release and it won't pass, and no one has any idea or seems to do anything other. So it's like, I think this is a cultural problem more than it is a like, I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
And does your plan, Sean? And this is where I get stuck because we've talked about it a lot, and there's a lot of different things that we've talked about potentially fixing it. Does this, if a particular component is failing, does it just get stuck at that version until they fix it?
What happens is if a nightly fails, right now the nightlies are only set to store artifacts for a day. And I did that on purpose so that we would quickly see when things were broken. We could eventually increase that to be like a couple of days, so that like PR testing would still function, as long as like right, like you wouldn't be blocked if like another piece of the project that you didn't fully integrate with was broken on nightly. Your PRs wouldn't be blocked on that, because the thing over there, we would use the last known good version of that for your PR testing, and that person would have some time to go fix their stuff before it broke everything. But eventually, if there's no nightlies passing, eventually the entire CI system will fail. Like I said, I have it set for a day right now, so it actually like immediately fails. And I think I'm okay with that for some period of time. Intraday, the problem gets better, because like if you merge a PR and it's broken, it's not going to immediately break everybody. It will break everybody over time, but it means that everybody needs to own their pieces. Does that answer the question, David, or no?
It answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff, you're next.
Yeah, so at the risk of this sounding like an excuse, it's really more of a commentary about what our goal should be, and that is that from my perception, like when you have tests that were running and would, if they would fail, you just rerun them and they would pass, because they just weren't stable enough, or there were a lot of externalities that caused things to fail, and this has been kind of like affecting things over a long period of time. And looking at the current set of workflows and so forth, I can tell you, I personally just had a bit of a feeling of being overwhelmed when like a test would fail, and it could be anything from like a mismatch between what got seeded, what didn't get seeded, like whether or not the workflows were actually deploying the right thing, so that all the versions were consistent and things. But all that being said, I think and this, Dylan, you said this was a culture. I at least have a hard time feeling that people saw the nightlies failed and thought this isn't my job. And maybe some people did, I don't know. But I can tell you that I looked at it from the most of the time and looked at it and thought either the test was flaky, somebody broke the test, or something broke the test, or that something was broken so analysis failed because it had an externality, like something in Maven being down or whatever it was, or that something changed in the rules that somehow didn't get caught by anyway. It always felt to me like it was a bit of an I don't know, a bit of a whack-a-mole kind of overwhelming feeling to fix it. So I think all I'm saying is that I can tell you from my perspective, I would be much more eager to jump in if all the workflows and actions were laid out in ways such that, at least to me, it was intuitive, and I could very easily figure out kind of how the test got deployed and what was going on, as well as when something breaks, it's straightforward to go and see like what broke. And I think part of that is, again, like if we have tests, if we can achieve what I want to achieve, which is to have the layered tests such that if all of these underlying tests are passing and then concur breaks and the concur fails, then at least I'll know all the plumbing is correct, all the infrastructure is not broken. And I don't know. Anyway, this is kind of a long-winded way to say that it's a little bit of a self. It's a problem that makes itself worse by just the nature of itself. And I don't know if we can just find some way to make this, to deploy this, to basically design and organize this in a way such that I don't feel this way. It would be a big help, and maybe other people feel this way, maybe they don't.
I can totally agree and sympathize with a lot of the points you're making near the end, which is that, like, especially I feel this way. Like, I feel like I've almost, it's kind of interesting. Like the test suite that we were using to gate releases, I started it, got completely uninvolved in it, and then inherited it, taking over the maintenance of it. When things would break, I tend to, when it would go red, the first thought I always had was, let me just rerun it. So, like, I get that side of it, right? But I need to push back slightly on one thing that I do think why this is cultural is that, like, if it was simply just, okay, we all know that we need to rerun it, we want to see it green, then, like, we wouldn't have a situation like this, where, like, this is our last stable release. This thing's been broken since February 26th for a legitimate problem. If we're saying this is our end-to-end test suite, which, like, we all agreed this was the end-to-end test suite that we're verifying and qualifying builds against, which you can argue we don't all understand how this works. We don't have all of the buy-in to how it's actually testing things. So I agree with that part of it. This thing breaks, failing one of our application analysis test cases, and it's just been broken for this long, and no one does anything about it. So, like, that's the only thing that's my frustration point. I totally sympathize with everything you're saying, but, like, this is indicative of no one cares about this. No one has any motivation to go fix this. I'm guilty too. I don't want to go fix this, but, like, we can't have this, right?
Hey guys. Well, I think we all probably agree that it shouldn't be this way, but in this case, in the case of the night list, I took a look a while ago, and well, I think this has already been discussed, but just my 5 cents. I took a look, and well, we know that the release 08 hasn't changed or hasn't been touched probably in like 4 months, which is when it was done. So, okay, it had to be something external. But as it has been said before, today we don't have visibility over the images or what might have caused changes in the images, if there were any changes. It's very hard to fix. If we don't have visibility on that, I wouldn't know where to start. So that's, I guess, I took a look at this, for instance, but I just
I didn't know where to start, to be honest.
Totally get that.
So I guess that the point that Jason was making at the beginning is one, and what Sean said. I mean, if this might be the problem in the future, we just need to have a way of knowing what changes. I don't know. I know it has been said before today, but just my 5 cents.
Yeah, I think
if I can jump in, it should be possible to use some kind of binary search to track down the PR that caused the regression, assuming that we are not limited by runners. It's just matter of few runs, best in parallel, of course, and that would help to ping the right people.
I think in the case of the nightlies for 08 and 07, nothing has changed in a long time. That's the thing. They started spontaneously failing from one day on. So something must have changed, but at least I don't think anything has changed in the code base.
This, I mean, so that revelation kind of makes me think we need to know, like, if anything's changed on the repos we're using for test apps, if anything's changed on the repos that we're running CI from, like the conveyor releases or conveyor CI or whatever, like anything that's involved, we need to know. Because if the release hasn't changed, if none of the images have changed and we're breaking now, it could be our tests, it could be our CI, it could be, I mean, that's pretty frustrating. I mean, maybe nothing broke and there's a test, like CI has changed and something that is expected just isn't in release 8. I don't know. We really need to know, like, every piece that we're writing, like, has it changed? So again, if the release repo, if the CI repo, if any of those things are involved in the nightly tests, we need to know, like, what the SHAs are that this came from. Likewise, if it's if CIs being run out of the master or main branch, we need to know that, like, something's changed. Like, the test has failed, so, like, we need a way to track that down and quickly. Like, I mean, it's been 2 weeks because nobody has any clue what's changed. Like, we need to be able to, like, every repo, every branch that's used for this test, these are the SHAs. I mean, it's the only way we're ever gonna get to the bottom of stuff like this in a rapid manner, I think.
I don't think I disagree. I just have a question of, like, has anybody even attempted to go install the release 08 tagged images and run any sort of analysis, just even on one of the failing things? Not like run go conveyor test necessarily, but just run that to see if they can get, like, the failure locally.
I think we all know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing, and Jeff, I'm going back to your earlier point. I think what I'm hearing is that, like, the system is so complicated, or rather, we have so many different parts of the system, and when the infrastructure pieces flake, which gets to the point about, like, oh, you just rerun it and it passes. That, like, it seems to me that people just assume that any red is a flake. Is that fair?
I think that's very possible. And then, like, in this case, it's like, I can't tell you how many times something like this will happen, and I'll I'll run the test locally, run the same analysis locally, and it passes. It fails in CI, but it runs fine in the wild, right? And then the other thing is that you'll see. To be honest with you, because I don't remember us actually merging anything into 08. My first reaction was when something like this in 08 fails, because we wouldn't have released 08 if everything passed when 08 we got released, right? And it's like if this is failing, my assumption is that we're probably doing something like running the current main test against 08, and something changed in the test that is now catching something that may be legitimately broken, but it's running the wrong version of the test suite against 08. And that may not be true in this case, but over the years, that type of scenario has been so prevalent that it's just hard for me to take it seriously.
Yeah, I think I agree mostly. And then I'll say, I think I agree mostly, and I think the only way to make it not feel apathy towards the CI system, because I think that's what we're like kind of talking about, is kind of like, it's probably just like this, like I don't need it, like whatever, is kind of the sense that I'm getting. And I think I understand the feeling, like, given this happening enough times, it starts to feel like that, right? The thing that I would say is, like, if we tomorrow have a super high priority CVE come in that we had to go fix, we now have to go fix the CI system before we can even attempt to solve that CVE. Because today, like we would have to patch that branch, right, to get the patch release out. And because the CI's in the state, like we're like, we now have to do a whole bunch of work just to figure that out before we get there. And so, like, what the worry that I have is, what can we do to say, like, we can make this better, and let's figure out what the real problems are. And instead of creating an issue just to track fixing the problem, let's fix the problem, like right now. Like, if nothing else, getting the understanding from fixing release 08 and bringing it into Concur to make sure that we do cover that particular problem, so that we don't have the same problem with the new way, would be really useful. And then I'd say, like, as far as the flakiness goes, I think any CI system is going to have some level of flakiness. It's just a matter of, like, there are even in Concur, there are times when GitHub's artifacts retrieval just kind of doesn't work every time fully. The problem, the thing that I have is that, like, we should be able to tell when it's that sort of flake versus when it's an actual problem, right? And so, what can we do? Like, are people just looking at the red and then clicking run again and not looking at what failed? And so, like, the pattern matching knowledge of, like, oh, these are the types of flakes that we see, let's rerun it, versus, oh, we got past the normal flakes, I'm actually seeing, like, the results come back and they're wrong, let me dive into that. Like, am I hitting on a potential problem?
I don't know. I usually look at this, see what failed in it, but
okay.
And usually if it's something like that where it fails to get the image, then it's somewhat more obvious. But
okay.
But I think I mean, you're kind of hitting on, I think that also, so the main takeaway from everything I just said is that I think the cornerstone to us fixing the culture that we've evolved into based on our experience with this whole thing is going to be, we have to have faith in it. And once we have faith in it, then people will take things being read seriously as actually problems with our code and not problems with CI. And I'm not saying it'll never be that or environmental, but we just have to find a way such that people can do that.
Yeah, I'm also hearing another a separate problem, which I don't know how to solve, which is like what's broken isn't something that I feel like I have ownership of, and so it should be somebody else job to go fix that. And I think like there's like a lot of truth to that, and also like we should be able to communicate this in some way of like, hey, I see this nightly failing. I ran, I went and checked my stuff on release 08. I ran this set of things against these images, and I'm able to see it pass. This is failing here, and like I think it might be X thing. Paying team lead for that thing. Can you take a look? But like we should like, right? Does that make sense? Because I think it's fair to say that like if it's a bug in Analyzer LSP, it's not incumbent on Jeff to dig into Analyzer LSP to figure out what's wrong. That like, well, not everyone should have the full context.
It would certainly be less practical for me to do that.
Yeah. Yes. I agree. But if
there's still a thing there, like if the infrastructure is failing, right? Like to your point, like, and to Dylan's point, it's like one person can't just own all of CI. That's ridiculous. Yeah. So if we're having like infrastructure failures, that's kind of on everybody to try to figure out how to fix it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been in this situation in a past life, Sean. So I mean, I feel it. But like people can't just run and say nightly's failed. I didn't do anything yesterday. I didn't push anything or merge anything. And
yeah, I think what I'm hearing is we need to have some sort of guidance on when nightlies fail, what is like a way in which someone whose pieces parts aren't failing can contribute to helping solve it.
We also, like, to that point, like we need an SLA type thing. Like we just need a contract that we all are agreeing to as a team. Nightly fails, something assigns it to some team. You have to fix it within 24 hours. Like it's got to be something like that, I think.
Or at least understand the root cause in 24 hours.
RCA within 24 hours.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And I'm not trying to be harsh about it. It's just like the frustrating thing is that if we don't do something like that, I don't really see this improving.
Yeah, well, I could be wrong, but I think Jeff kind of illuminated a bit of it, which is that like there are multiple different parts at play, and it's like a little bit of a like like I can't see that it's my part that's failing, and so like at that point I stop. I think the best thing to do at that point would be to communicate it and like all that other stuff. So that's what I was trying to get at, is like even seeing that people have looked at it and like are attempting to might help another person dig into this more specific spot. And I think being able to rerun this in a way that I think right now it's way too opaque. to like the Shaw question and everything else, like being able to rerun this locally in a way that like is repeatable is going to be incredibly useful. So
I totally agree. Totally agree. And sorry, David, to interject. I just to that point, Sean. Like I think let's say we made 0 changes to the actual current CI pipeline. It would be one thing if we get pinged. Everyone gets pinged. The entire team gets pinged when this thing fails. It'd be one thing if that thing happens. We have people on a Slack thread being like, "This doesn't look like something that I can help with. Hey, blah, can you take a look?" If we had that bare minimum engagement right now to go iron these things out, then I don't think we'd have part of these problems, right? I totally agree on all this stuff we've got to fix. Like we got to make sure that we understand the images that are being tested. We've got to make this easier to consume. We all have to understand how the CI system works. Like all those things are totally true, and I'm not discounting any of that. I'm just oversimplifying that part of the problem to say there's a process thing that we could easily instantiate to just make sure that us as a team is communicating and taking these things as like a high priority task, right?
Yeah, you're not. I mean, you're not wrong about that part, Dylan. And you know, I have to admit, I love when I said that nothing like I'm not aware of anything in any of the tackle repos, so to speak, that changed in 08 that would cause this test to all of a sudden start going red. And so I have to admit, my feeling is okay. If somebody else must have merged something somewhere, right? Either to the seed repo or to the CI system or to Go Konveyor test or something that's causing this thing to go red. And surely they will go, oh, it's red, and I just merged something, So theoretically, I'm thinking someone else will pick it up. Now, what I'm agreeing with you, Dylan, is that the erosion of my good citizen culture thing is real, and I'm trying to fix it, but I'm just trying to be honest about kind of like how my personal behavior has eroded over time.
Totally, and you're the only one willing to say it out loud, so I appreciate that because I know a lot of other people doing the same thing, so I appreciate that. David, you've had your hand up. Go ahead.
I was gonna say or ask, is it possible for the end goal to be when the analyzer LSP merges a change that breaks it, that one, it breaks on the PR and it breaks on merge, it doesn't wait until nightly to fail, and two, we actually keep those analyzer LSP changes out of our bundle? Like, is that something like I feel like if your changes just aren't making it into the release, then it would be pretty obvious who's broken.
I think that yes, and I think we are light years away from being able to do that for a variety of reasons. Yeah,
I would say, right, but like every step that we take going forward needs to have that end goal in mind, that we need to be bringing it closer to individual PRs or the merge and it just blows up because you broke it.
I mean, that's basically what we try to do with what we have today, right? That was the idea, right? That when you merge things, CI worked, and like we then assume that your thing can get included in the overall CI, right? And I think what we've clearly found is that like there are integration points and everything else that cause weirdness. And we need to hammer that stuff out before I think we can get to that point. I think it's a lot easier when it's something that like yeah, I don't know. But that's just my thoughts, David. I don't know if that makes sense.
So I'll just reiterate briefly again, is that I think, and I'm not pointing fingers at anything, because I know that all of the tackle repos are way behind on having sufficient levels of testing at the more local level, but and even at the adjacent component integration level, and which I'm kind of pushing to try to get in place. But I think that part of the problem is that because we've been relying on the end-to-end kind of nightly, the whole thing, to catch things that could be caught at the repo level. We don't see these at the time that PRs get done, and it makes it, once we have those things in place, I think it'll be a lot easier to see that I mean, the nightly shouldn't even run the end-to-end everything test until all the individual repos tests are all running green. You know what I mean? Like, and that way, when that happens, you go, like, if somebody were to introduce something, just because of the case that you brought up, if analyzer changed something such that it's causing, with the same rule set, a different result, that should be, like, I agree with you, David. It should have been caught before the PR gets merged. And in a case where something doesn't catch it there, or I don't know, I guess it would catch it there. But anyway, I just feel like if we had a better layering of tests too, we would catch things at what I'm calling to me, a change in the way maybe that might happen in the analyzer itself. That's kind of, in my opinion, at the infrastructure level, and we should be catching that there, and not the fact that these tags aren't being caught in the concur test, or not. These tags are missing in the analysis results. I think part of the problem, we've been relying on the analysis results matching being the only thing that tells us that we broke something. And I'm not saying, if I'm mischaracterizing things in other repos or in all the repos in general, just bear with me. I'm just trying to make a point. But I think we're on the right track, right? We're pushing to get these lower level layer tests done, like in place. I think we're looking to sort out our workflows. I think we're looking, switching over to Concur to me is a really big help. And, I at least am willing to hit the reset button if we can just get the CI system to where, in the tests that get run to a level where I will assume that there's something that is not the CI system. You know what I mean?
I also think that we have become, just to channel, like, we have become better at being accountable, actually, apart from the nightlies that are failing, and, fair enough. But I think since the last push last year for making the whole thing better, I think we have become better at everything, and also being accountable for the problems. Even though I think the problems we're having now with the release 7 and release 8 are kind of special cases. But I would say that we have become better. But
yeah. I think I mostly agree that that this last release cycle coming out at the end of the year, I think I would agree 100% with that. I think the problem is that it hasn't it basically has on main, right? And I think I would agree that on main, folks have been pretty responsive. When main goes down, people are fixing, the main nightly goes down, people are had been trying to fix it, do a bunch of stuff, make sure it's right and stuff like that. I agree with you, Wanma, 100%. And probably should have stated that earlier. I do think that is a good thing to call out. Yes. It's just now we have to also care about the old release branches, and the hard part about caring, you have bug fixes that you need to get in for this release. You have your future facing things that you're trying to work on, and now you have to go back to this thing that's released and it's broken, and you have to go and figure that out and run, and that it's hard to have all of those different contexts in your head. And so I get the problem. I just and I think my biggest takeaway is that like it needs to be easier to run what was run in CI locally, and be sure that you're running exactly what was in CI at that point. So, okay. Thank you all for the long discussion. I know that this took a long time. I think there was a lot of insightful things, and hopefully next community meeting I can have at least like some outcome driven thing from the discussion, or I'll send an email out with it if I can't join the meeting. But I think it is important to take the discussion and try to distill it into some sort of outcome based thing. And I think I'll work with Dylan. I'll ship it around, and hopefully we can get it some agreement on a couple of different outcomes and what we can do about it. So thank you all for participating. I guess I'll go on to my next one. Do we want to spin up a conveyor instance, import our own conveyor things, and now that we have the Go provider, have some sort of rules or something that we could use to manage and migrate our own things? Yeah, just a thought or wondering what folks think, but could we start dog fooding ourselves in some way?
I think it could be a good idea, and also we would end up somehow, well, we would end up using the system, which is, I think, what we should all do actually to know what's working and what's not. So we would end up also indirectly testing, if I understood correctly what you mean, which is us using Konveyor for our own stuff. I think it could be a good idea, because I don't think in general we use the system enough. It could also help us see how people at the end of the day use this. Did I understand you correctly, Sean?
Yeah, you did. You did. I was
Okay,
just waiting for. No, sorry. I was just waiting for other people to jump in. Sitting in silence sometimes brings out more comments. Yeah, my eventual goal is like Konveyor as a org has many different repos at this point, with many different teams working on different things at different states of being, and presumably there are some things that we should be kind of standardizing on, that we would want some system to help us stay standard. And it seems to me like that is a mini modernization problem of sorts. And so the thought process was, well, that's what our tool is supposed to help people with. What can we use the tool to help ourselves? If that makes sense. The one of this came up is the Go 124 is no longer going to get CVE fixes. Everybody has to be on 125 or 126. So we do need everyone's repositories to move to 125. What is how do we get people to right? Like we need to track that. We need to do all that stuff. So yeah, anyway. I think there's more than that, by the way. Like, I assume that there's a bunch of dependencies that are running that are super old. A lot of our workflows, I think, are using really old versions of actions and everything else. Those would be really interesting to be able to get some sort of rules for, of like, hey, you're running too old of a thing, update that. I think there's use cases here that would be interesting. I think so. That's where my head was at. I just wanted to see what people thought, and
I think I think we should totally do it, to be honest.
Okay.
And also, now that you mentioned it, for rule creation, it would be also cool, so that potentially more people could contribute more rules.
Yep. Yeah, I think it has a lot of benefits. I agree.
Yeah.
Like Jeff could write a rule set for like, hey, you're running the binding incorrectly because you're using this anti-pattern, do this instead or something. Like, that would be interesting. I don't know. Stuff like that there's some stuff there that I think would be interesting to enable, but I don't know where it would live, and I don't know who would own it and all the other stuff. So
even if anything, just to get more people using the tool. Like, who cares if it's a little, I mean, I've always felt that way. I remember bringing that up back in November. It's like, just try to use it for any intended purpose, period.
Yeah. Dylan, can we work then to get some sort of infrastructure to have this shared with the upstream in some way?
Totally. Sure.
Okay. We'll work together to figure that out.
We are 5 minutes past time.
Oh, I'm sorry, folks.
I personally will have to go. I don't know if we should just save the other discussion topics for another meeting.
I was going to suggest that just move that to the next meeting.
Could I just quickly bring up the last one, because I think it'll take 2 seconds? If you're ever interested in hosting these meetings and you feel called upon doing that, I'm sure Savita and myself would love to anoint you as a future community host. So if you have any interest, please feel free to reach out, and maybe we can rotate.
And if you want inspiration, look at me. I just blabber all the time, so it's totally fine.
You can just not host and still blabber all the time, like I just did. So yeah.
Yeah.
I call yours as a thoughtful
Wow, that's very
ramble. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Mostly ramble.
Not in a bad way, in a good way. I just want to make sure that I'm. Anyways, I'll just think. We will all meet in 3 weeks. And I just want to let folks know that we do have KubeCon coming up, KubeCon Europe. So if anyone that you know or you are there and someone wants to talk about Konveyor, I'll be there. So feel free to ping me. And I think we do have kiosk shift, and I don't know about the timing. I need to check that out. Ramon is the point of contact for that. And there is a lightning talk that would be given by Shaf. Yeah, I'm excited. And see you all in 3 weeks. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys. Bye.